and scholars, Alex Alonso and FG, here to bring you guys another banger. And I'm here with the Eastside General. What it do?
What's going on with you, homie?
Hey, I wanted to, I didn't get to ask you about the whole motorcycle event that you was that last weekend?
Yeah, that was on Saturday. Yeah, well, it was the whole week last week. Yeah, Hub City Riders. We had our annual week this week, man, and so every night we was at a different club, hanging out, and then Saturday night was the dance, and over there in Watts, man, it was cracking too. It went down.
So it's like cats from across the whole LA County area, or is it statewide, or how's that?
You know what? We put it out there, man, and dudes come from everywhere, Alex. You know what I mean? And they come in, depending on what they schedule looking like. But the guys who want to, during the dance, they're gonna put out there for the biggest social club, which is, the females. They're gonna put up a few dollars to the biggest auxiliary club, and then they also gonna put out a trophy or a few dollars to the biggest motorcycle club. And surprisingly, the biggest motorcycle club, man, was out of I forgot the name of the club, but they was out of, I looked at their patch, bro. They was out of Brooklyn, New York, man, and Miami, Florida. They was the same club, two different chapters, but they came all the way from the East Coast, man, and down south, man, to come rock with us, man, and that was fly right there. I hate that I forgot the name of that club, man, because I definitely give a shout out to them. But yeah, they represented that, man, all the way from the East Coast.
So you mean to tell me these guys got on their hogs and rode across the whole country?
They rode across the country, man. You know what I mean? And like I say, come rock with us, man. But those are real riders. You know what I mean? I can't say every single one of them out of the 45 of them that was there. Every single one of them rode, but I know a nice chunk of them did, because I seen them riding out on their bikes, and and a few of them told me they hit that highway. So that was something special, man. I don't think I'm ready for a ride like that by far, but at the same time, man, I give them dudes big ups, man, for coming and putting it down like that, man, putting them bikes on the highway, and like I said, them some real riders right there.
Yeah, it must be quite costly. Well, I guess when you're putting gas in a motorcycle, you're getting more mileage for each gallon, so it's not as costly.
I mean, it's still going to be up there a little bit, because you're going to have to keep filling up that tank. For me, it's coming from somewhere that far, you kind of have to know how to navigate that highway, man, because you have to know how far each gas station is. Somebody had to be that made that run before, you know what I mean? And to know, that you have enough distance between this gas station and the next gas station. You only got a 5-6 gallon tank at most, you know what I mean? Or you got, I'm sure the dudes had trucks and trailers, following them just in case somebody break down and things of that nature, emergency gas cans and all that thing. But like you say, it's a costly event, but some people prepare for it. I have a lot of homies that ride with other clubs, Kings of Cali's, Black Knights, and when they hit that highway, man, they well prepared. So, that's what them guys do. You know what I mean? So, they definitely be ready for it, Alex.
But then again, you also need to stop off at different hotels, motels along the way. I'm sure that's mandatory.
No doubt. You know what I mean? Because at the same time, fatigue gonna wear in on you. You can only hit so many hours a day, man, before, fatigue just set in. You got to shut it down. So like you say, you got hotels, you got gas, you got food. It's definitely a costly event. But if it's something you love to do, man, then and you have the money, then it's not a problem. You don't mind spending it because it's what you love to do, and that's with anything, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, you got to have some bread in the kitty, man, but at the same time, if you ride a Harley, you got to have some money anyway, you know what I mean? So shit.
Oh, yeah. So what's the longest trip you did on your hog?
For me, just as long as I've been is Arizona, man. You know what I mean? I hit AZ, man, and for me, it was a great ride.
That was last year, right?
Yeah, it was last year. It was a great ride, man. I'm looking forward to going a little further. Got a guy on my job I ran into the other day, man. He said they was going to Idaho for an event, and so them dudes get out there and really pound that pavement, going up to, like you say, but it's nothing for a lot of these dudes to jump on a highway and go to Dallas and go to, I ain't got there yet, but it's coming, man. It's coming. I'm making some preparations right now to get ready for something like that.
I remember driving to Arizona. I think it's the darkest highway that I've ever ridden on. Did you do that at night? Were you on that bike at night going to Arizona?
Well, you know, the ideology is to leave about 4 or 5 in the morning. You know what I mean? So you catch a little darkness, but by the time, you know, you get rolling, the sun coming up, you know how hot it is in AZ. So you don't want to, you know, be out there in the middle of the heat either. So, you know, you jump on that road 4 or 5 in the morning, man, and, you know, try to get there by 10, you know, and you be all right. You know, so like I say, the dudes who riding across country, they planning this shit out strategically. You know, they probably getting up every morning, 2, 3 in the morning, pounding out, you know, a little darkness. And then by the time the sun come up, you know what I mean? You know, you got a few hours in already, you know, so, you know, I'm sure they planning the weather, you know, mapping out the weather, you know, and all that. So, you know, when you on a mission, Arizona ain't nothing, but, you know, when you're on a mission from the East Coast, or, you know, you're on a mission from Arkansas or somewhere, I mean, yeah, you really got to plan those missions out. But, man, if you like riding, man, you with 30, 40 bikes, you know, it's something special, man, and feel good when you out there rolling like that.
Yeah, I actually want to do a cross-country trip in one of those trailers with my kids. I want to hit, you know, I want to hit all the big cities and spend, I don't know, 2-3 weeks just on the road. I ain't never done that. I took the bus from New York City to Los Angeles when I was about 11, 12 years old, but it was not comfortable because you're sitting in the seat upright the whole time.
Right.
But I'd like to get a little a trailer or something and do it with the kids.
Hey, man, you got to, man. You know, I know one of my oldest kids were young. Their grandfather had brand new RV. And at a very young age, man, he used to take them back home where he was from Mississippi, you know, but they'd make their rounds and go to visit, you know, people up in Tennessee, you know, family members up in Tennessee, man. So at a young age, man, they was out there on that road, man, and, you know, getting them road trips in, man. And that's something special when you know, you can do that with a family member, a grandparent or parent and family members, man. It's something special when you know, you get that opportunity. So many people that don't. And that's just, you know, it seems simple, but yet sometimes we don't, you know, get to have those accomplishments, get to do those other things. So, you know, when you get to talk about these kids or just getting out on that highway, period, man. And so if anybody ever rode through Colorado at a certain time of the season, you know, it's beautiful. I mean, you know, it don't get a lot more beautiful than going through Colorado, you know. So, you know, for your kids to get to see that, or even as an adult, man, you know, sometimes that's some great opportunities.
Yeah, I like doing stuff with my kids now that they're all teenagers and grown. I remember my wife would say, "Hey, let's take the babies here," and I'm like, "Why? They ain't gonna remember it."
Right. Well, if you're too young, you know they not. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know. So, but that's what's happening.
All right, man. We got an update. We got an update on Big Y's service. Okay. So I want to let everybody know what's going on with Big Y. He's got a viewing and he's got the service, and I want to shout out Ant Dog from out of Inglewood for keeping in touch with me, man, and for really tapping in with us last week, man, because, you know, Ant Dog don't do much talking right. You know, public spaces, man, and I'd love to get Ant Dog and sit down with me for an hour, but that's probably highly unlikely. But, you know, it ain't gonna stop me from asking him again and again. But yeah, we got the funeral is going to be the viewing is June 17th. June 17th at Grace Memorial. That's in Inglewood. And then the funeral is going to be on June 20th. I think the 17th is a Saturday, right?
If I'm not mistaken, yeah.
Let me pull that up. Yeah, so the viewing is on Saturday, the 17th. And then the actual funeral will be on the following Tuesday. Okay. And I think that there are going to be some people that are traveling to the area for Big Y's service. And for those who are coming here, the viewing in Inglewood and the funeral service in Gardena is not that far apart. So once you see two different cities, don't think that it is a long distance. What is it from Gardena to Inglewood? I'm gonna guess that's like 15 minutes. Maybe?
Yeah, hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah. So we got that, man, and the viewing is at 3:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Grace Memorial, and the funeral service on the following Tuesday on the 20th will be at 11 a.m. Okay. So yeah, that's the update on Big Y, man, and tap into the last episode. We kind of had a dope interview with Ant Dog from Inglewood. And any last things you want to say about Big Y, man?
Nah, man, I'm just, I know the family and everybody want to put some closure on it, man, to a legend, man, out of Inglewood, so rest in peace to Big Y, man, and like I said, I'm always sending out my condolences to his, his family, his kids, moms or any family members and homies, you know what I mean? Because I know, the homies, like you say, Big Y been around a long time, so banging on wax and, really in the streets doing it, man. So, this is a dude who, he lived his life on the floor, on Front Street, you know what I mean, with being the blood, homie, and good dude, though, you know what I mean? But, dude, definitely, you know what I'm saying, represented it right. And, respect, dude, and, much love and respect. Big Y.
Yeah, I think I want to go into my garage and pull out all my CDs. I put all my CDs up, and I know I got some Big Y CDs in there from the 90s, man. I'm actually going to pull out my CDs. I'm actually going to try to get a CD player and connect it to my system at home because, everyone's used to this digital, we stream in.
Yeah.
But I want to connect a tape deck. I want to connect a CD player. And I want to connect a record player because I still got boxes of old records, LPs.
Yeah, me too. I got all my parents' albums, you know what I mean? The Temptations, the Spinners, the Whispers, my daddy Richard Pryor albums. I got all that still, you know what I mean? Not too long ago, we just brought my one of my daughters. She wanted a record player. She heavy in the vinyl still to this day. So, yeah, man, it's crazy how we keep those things, but we do need a machine to play them on.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I'm gonna get me a record player, man. Man, those records that you got, if they're your parents' records, man, them records go back. You might even have some records from the '60s, man. If I ain't mistaken.
I got them, man. I got them album after album in the crates, man. So, like I say, every now and then I get to pulling stuff out, man, and stuff I didn't even know about then that I know now, and I was like, wow, I never knew I had this album, and Michael Jackson. These just the whole get down, you know what I mean? So you know how it was coming up in the 70s, man. It was great music back then. I think the music in those times will never be replicated, but also the rap to me in the 90s when Big Y and them came through, I just think it'll never be replicated. You know what I mean? Not saying the good music is not going to be out, but though that 90 gangster shit, Alex, I don't think it can be touched, man.
Yeah, man. I can't wait to bring out all my old stuff to go back to the vinyl and to the cassettes and the CDs. And there's a record shop in Hollywood, man. They sell vinyl still. It's called Amoeba, and a lot of new artists are pressing vinyl actually. So vinyl is kind of making a low key comeback. I don't think it's like it ain't selling in the millions like it once did. But there's a store in Hollywood. That's all they sell is vinyl. So tap in with that, and I'm gonna pull out my Big Y CDs at some point because I know I got them in the garage. I got all those banging on wax. I got all that. What was the other one called? They had the Crip one. They had the Blood one. There was two different Blood ones. One was banging on wax, and I forget what the other one was. But I got all of them, man.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see here. I wanted to tap in with this this one story from out of. I'm going to tap in with this story from New Haven, Connecticut. This was a brother that was riding in the back of a police van, and they didn't have him restrained. I guess they took him into custody. A guy named Randy Cox, 36 years old, threw him in the back of a van, and they had him cuffed. He was handcuffed.
Right. I remember this situation, yeah.
Okay, yeah, you remember this story. Well, look, I wouldn't imagine in 1,000,000 years that a lawsuit would have amounted to $45 million, but they just reached a settlement for $45 million, man. Unbelievable.
I mean, for me, it's believable because I remember seeing the video of him in the back of the van. And the reason they probably came to that amount, man, because they was purposely fucking over this dude, Alex, stopping, braking hard, making him bust his head up against the gate and all those things. I mean, it was messed up, homie. It would be one thing if he had his hands free to be able to brace himself. Maybe he would only broke a wrist or something like that, man. This dude paralyzed from the chest down. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, $45 million don't mean shit. You know what I mean? Yeah, to help his family. Yeah, it might put him in a comfortable space where he have a more comfortable bed or a better wheelchair or something like that, Alex. But how actually can he enjoy his money? So, to me, you know what I mean, is not enough, from when you're talking about paralyzed from the chest down, So I am glad that they were able to come up with that amount. Like I say, I'm sure he may have kids or may have sisters and brothers that he can help out and make sure they straight. But at the end of the day, I mean, he not gonna be able to enjoy this money, So it ain't about the money to me. It's just about, they dogged him out, they got caught, and so they threw him some bread to try to fix it. I mean, but it is better than nothing, just to be honest with you. But yeah, man, dude over there messed up.
Yeah, man. They threw him in the van, and what's funny is that one of the articles that I found said that he was allegedly injured while being transported by the police, which is crazy. But I'm just playing a little bit of this footage of him just sitting in the back of this. I don't know. I don't know if these are paddy wagons, but he's just sitting in the back cuffed. And I think they just hitting speed bumps. I think they hitting dips, potholes, and they not giving an F what's going on with this dude. But I can't believe that the him getting bounced around in the back of that van actually caused that much paralysis. I'm just kind of shocked.
No, I wasn't, man, because it's all steel in there, metal. And when he slipped and hit his neck on the thing like that, it probably broke it, and once it broke it, he was jacked up, man. They probably did this 100 of times, and dudes come out just with a black eye, busted lips, busted head, things of that nature. But in this one, man, this dude really was hurt. Then they drug him in the police station. You know what I mean? Because they thought he was fake and thought he was bullshit, and they drug him in there with, probably causing more injury. You know what I mean? Just the way they drug him out of there and snatched him up, they probably caused more injuries doing that. So I'm thinking that's right here. Look, boom. And when his neck hit that back wall back there, that's probably when the injury occurred, and unfortunately, like I say, paralyzed from the neck down, man. And yeah, they needed to give up that money. But like I say, man, he's not going to even be able to use it to enjoy life with it.
Yeah, I think you got to get hit just the right way, man, to get paralyzed. And it looks like like you said, he went kind of head first with all the momentum of the rest of his body behind his head and his neck. And it actually, when I look at it from another angle, it does look devastating. It's just, man, I believe these officers, do we know if these officers were charged? I didn't even look into that.
Well, I know they was just recently fired, but I don't think they was charged. I know they was recently fired. But on another note, Alex, you know what I mean? I've been in the back of, some vans, not made of steel like this, but I have been in the back of vans. I've been back of various arrests in the back of various vehicles. And at the end of the day, once he felt that van moving, because I'm sure before he made the ultimate crash right there, hit his head right there, he felt this van moving back and forth like real aggressively, you know what I mean? And, maybe he didn't know, but in that situation, man, he definitely would have need to brace himself a whole lot better, get up against one wall, put his back up against us, brace his feet down, because you see they driving crazy or you see they stopping faster, don't get me wrong, I wasn't back there with him. Maybe this was the first time they, took off and made it go fast and jerk. But at the same time, man, I've been on an airplane, handcuffed, shackled, feet and hands. I've been on the buses. I've been in the back of these vans. You know what I mean? And it is, you got to brace yourself. You don't have no hands to catch yourself, so you got to brace yourself. And I'm sure maybe he just didn't know that, bro, but it led to paralysis. And, like I say, the police, I'm always expecting them to try to do some shit like that, man. I remember they used to put us in the back of the police car, turn the heater on in the middle of the summer and get out the car and stand out the car, try to burn you. You know what I mean? So they do all these things, man, to mess with you and shit. But it's just unfortunately that this dude didn't come out with just bruises and cuts, man. He came out paralyzed.
Now, when you've been transported in the past, have you ever been transported in a plane by the feds, and do they take more responsibility in the way they restrain all the inmates on the plane?
I've been on a couple planes. We call it Con Air, of course, but no doubt. Been shackled by the feet. Like you say, you shackled by around the waist, hands down. You barely can feed yourself. You definitely hope you don't have to use the restroom. It's inhumane, but at the same time, man, we committed a crime, homie. So this is what it was. Um, um, but yeah, no, Alex, you take a quick turn and you take a dude, the you hit some turbulence or something too hard, I mean, you unstabilize, you know what I mean? Because your feet with shackles on them can't even spread wide enough to brace yourself, So I have seen dudes fall on buses, because they wasn't able, they talking and the bus moving and they not, you like I say, the shackles only let your legs go so far. So I have seen dudes fall on trip on the plane. I have seen dudes fall on the bus from the bus, taking a turn and they wasn't ready for the turn, but at the end of the day, people don't know how hard it is to get up after you falling with shackles and being chained around the waist.
Yeah,
or handcuffed. Yeah.
Well, I got this article here that breaks down the $45 million lawsuit, and not surprising, there's your boy Benjamin Crump. Man, Benjamin Crump, he gets in front of any high-paying lawsuit that exists, boy. He don't waste no time.
He don't waste no time, and he gonna get a little piece of a percentage of it as well. The thing about it is, not going off topic, Alex, but the thing about a lawsuit like this is by the time dude get his money, you know what I mean? I just hope he got some kind of support system around him, because being paralyzed, somebody is handling your business for you. You know what I mean? So that means you got people might be going to the bank. You got people might be, paying bills for you, things of this nature, man. And sometimes, when you have this kind of money and you got family members, man, they'll take advantage of you because you can't do nothing. So I'm hoping he got a good system around him, man, and just won't do him wrong once he do get the money.
Yeah, it says here that New Haven, Connecticut has agreed to pay $45 million to Randy Cox, who was transported handcuffed and without a seatbelt in the back of the police van following his arrest last year. The agreement was reached Friday evening following a day-long conference with a federal magistrate judge. It came 2 days after the city fired those two police officers who authorities said treated Cox recklessly and without compassion. I'm going to call for these two officers, man, to be charged with some sort of, what could they be charged with, FG?
Gross negligence, man. Yeah. Reckless endangerment, you know what I mean? I mean, damn, homie, it's just more or less like, they walk away just with a job loss. They going to go apply for in another county, 6 months, 90 days from now, and get another job. And this dude can't move from the waist down for the rest of his life, pretty much, So, it's definitely not fair, of course, but at the same time, man, that's how it goes with the law enforcement, man. They're gonna look out for each other.
Okay, down here at the bottom of the article, it says 5 officers, including those 2 that were just fired, face criminal charges in this case. All have pled not guilty, and of this $45 million. He's only going to get about, I don't want to say only, but I think 60% goes to him and 40% goes to the attorneys. But that's still a nice chunk of the $45 million, that 60%.
No doubt.
All right, man. All right, let's move on to, you actually sent me a link on this. Your boy Boosie.
Lil Boosie, man.
Okay, Lil Boosie getting in a little trouble. And I don't know if that has anything to do with going to the YNW Melly Trial, but he was there a couple of days ago. He was sitting in the YNW Melly Trial.
I heard, man. You know what I mean? To me, it wasn't a good look, for him. But at the same time, I don't know how close him and Melly was. I don't think they were. I know they did a song together, if I ain't mistaken, you know what I mean? So I don't know how close they was, but being that Boosie, he fought a murder case himself. I believe that Melly had the same attorney that Boosie had for his murder case, for a while, you know what I mean? So, but so maybe they are friends, you know what I mean? But at the same time, man, the publicity is not needed right now. Love dude from afar. Let him go fight his case. You know what I mean? Your presence in the courtroom, just to me. You know what I mean? I know when I was fighting case, I don't want the homies coming to my court shit. You know what I mean? That, just to me, it wasn't a good look. Don't get me wrong. The support is you always got to love the support. But when you a dude in Boosie case, a gangster, out there, I don't always believe that gangster look in the court is the right look. You feel me?
Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of people like to stay away from trials, even if it's your best friend. You're like, man, I ain't walking into that courthouse at all. But here's an article from TMZ. It says federal agents arrest Boosie after court appearance. It says here that a spokesman for the San Diego District Attorney's Office tells us that Boosie was in court Wednesday for an appearance on an ongoing gun case, which was eventually dismissed. But he was arrested by federal agents outside the courtroom as soon as his gun case wrapped. It says TMZ doesn't know the circumstances that led up to the arrest, but you sent me a link that said it might be tied into some wire taps, some phone calls. Can you break that down for us?
Well, for me, I believe I believe it's these gun cases. You know what I mean? I mean, personally, and I don't have no inside knowledge or nothing like that. If you was to ask me, because I seen this move happen like plenty of times, Alex. Plenty of time. With people that I know personally. You know what I mean? Where you have a state case. Some of us, we catch a gun case, Alex, and feds is coming. And what they do is, and how they do it, is as soon as the state already agreed to dismiss it because they know the feds is going to pick it up. I've seen this at least 10 times by people I know. Catch state gun cases and then turn around and the feds pick them up. That's why a lot of homies, I tell them, if they certain caliber dudes, I tell them, listen, man, plead out on that fast as you can, because you want to plead out on it in the state before the feds pick it up. You know what I mean? Because the feds, you could possibly have a mandatory 60 months on that gun case, mandatory minimum 60 months, opposed to the state, you might can get 2.5, 3 years off of it. A lot of dudes don't be wanting to plead out. They want to fight it and fight it. I'm dealing with the state. I'm probably can beat it, but they don't understand, man, when you're a certain level of dudes or the authorities, you've been eluding authorities for a long time, you'll be surprised that they'll call the feds and say, listen, man, we got this dude right here, on this gun case, man, what y'all want to do? The feds say, we'll grab it. They say, okay, we're going to dismiss it. I'm believing it just from what I've seen before, not 100% sure at all, that they probably just going to charge him with those 2 gun cases federally. You know what I mean? And he going to have to deal with it then, man. There's going to be a whole different level of punishment that's going to come along with it, because they've been wanting Boosie for a while, man. So that's what I believe it is.
Yeah, I mean, it happened to a brother we spoke about a few months ago at a sack town. He caught a gun case here in Culver City. I'm talking about Mozzie. I don't know if they dismissed it, dropped the charges, but whatever they did, and then the feds picked it up. But Mozzie was able to get away with just doing a year and a day. And actually, he was just released a couple weeks ago. So He got a year and a day, which is, I guess, not too bad for his gun case, right?
No doubt, but you know what I mean? Boosie been around a long time doing a lot of shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I mean, he beat his murder case, so I can't sit here and say he did it or nothing like that. But at the end of the day, man, he was charged with it, and he was under that microscope of being involved in a murder. Whether he did it or not, he was under the microscope and he was accused of it, so at the end of the day, man, if them prosecutors and them feds feel, because they get together and talk from state to state, and if they feel he got away with 1 or got away with 2 or then heard his name in multiple situations that they never got him on, this is what they do, Alex. The feds come holler at you, and that's for every street dude out there, you know what I mean? And like I say, I had 1 drug case in my entire life and got 10 years for it on my very first drug case because my name had been ringing and the state felt like, hold on, man, let's get these feds involved. That's just how they do it, And so I believe it's going to be something with the gun cases, and it come with a different penalty when you get over there in the feds. Everybody know that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious, because why would the district attorney's office in San Diego dismiss the case? And this TMZ article says, well, the good news is the case was dismissed, but what they're not saying is that that same case can pop up in the feds.
Yeah, but at the same time, it must be some airtight that they have because, the feds usually are real strict about them Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, them illegal searches and seizures and things of that nature. So if you pull Boosie over for a traffic stop, why was you searching his car in the first place? So I believe if it was a case where he made it and got this dismissed in the state, feds wouldn't have picked it up, if this what they having for.
So does
But
that
at the
mean
same time,
I was going to say, does that mean there's some communication between the DA's office and the feds?
oh, it's always communication between the DA's office and the feds, and the feds could have called the DA office and say, hey, bro, I know you want this, but let us grab this. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's simple as that. Bro, they dismissed the case and they was out there waiting for him. They definitely communicate. And like I've seen homies, come back to the unit. Hey man, they come back to the county jail, come back to the module and be like, man, they dismissed my shit. I'm finna go home. And when they get released, the feds out there, they don't never get released. The feds pick them up. So like I said, I've seen this time and time again, but I've also seen homies that had been to the feds, and catch a gun case, boom, jump on that deal real fast, and it's done. It's already done. You know what I mean? So, but it definitely happens, man. So I believe that it's enough evidence if the feds picked it up, and if it's about these guns that maybe it was some kind of probable cause for them to search the vehicle. Maybe they had good probable cause, on paper to say this is why we searched the vehicle. Because I was always wondering, man, if you pull me over for a traffic stop, give me a ticket. Why is you searching my vehicle? You know what I mean? So the news is definitely going to come out in an indictment. If they picked him up to this morning, he will see a magistrate judge today. He will have his indictment today. I don't know what state he was in San Diego. So he probably going to court, or he probably already at court right now as we speak. Probably at MCC San Diego. And he'll be there until they either transfer him or he fight it out from there.
And he can get bail on this case, right? The bail shouldn't be too high on this.
I mean, depending on his background, depending on his stableness, depending on if they deem him a flight risk. I believe they're gonna do all that with Boosie, man. I don't think they're gonna let him go. They've been wanting him a long time. I hope they, give him action. Let him fight it from the street, man. Let me fight my case, and I'll come back to court. Boosie ain't got no, I mean, I ain't gonna say no reason to run, but he know how this shit go. You run, you get caught later, it's just gonna be that 10 times worse. You know what I mean? So I hope they give him one. He can get out, fight his case, man. And but at the same time, these people play dirty, and depending on how bad they wanted this dude, or they'll make up anything to reprimand, to remand him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't know what role him attending YNW Melly's trial is going to play, but this just happened 2 days ago. He was just in the trial. I guess he was there to lend his support, to show that that YNW Melly still has a support base. And xxlmag.com just posted this article a couple of days ago talking about Boosie was attending YNW Melly's trial. And hey, to me, unless you're like a reporter, unless you're doing work, unless you're covering something, if you're from the streets, it's probably not a good idea to be sitting on another dude's murder trial, sitting in the audience. It's just too distracting, and then you're just exposing yourself to unnecessary police attention, in my opinion.
No doubt. And I think a whole lot of people think that, see, some people ain't going to get it though, Alex. Some people, don't understand, because they haven't been in a situation where they fighting for their life. This dude fighting the death penalty. You know what I mean? So, jurors are in there, now you got your, whether it's your cousin, your uncle, or a real family member, your brother, that's a known, a gangster in the street, or things of that. And you don't want this dude, like you said, distraction of letting the jury know exactly who you affiliated with and things of this nature. That ain't called for right now. You know what I mean? You fighting for your life, bro. You know what I mean? And I know Boosie might have thought different, like, man, let me just show some support to the young dude. But at the same time, he don't need support from the homies right now. He needs support from them attorneys. You know what I mean? That's who he need the support of, the jurors. He need jury support. And you ain't on that jury, man. Get your ass up out of there. Let that man fight his case. But I love Boosie though. It ain't like I got nothing against Boosie. I'm just talking about when you fight in these cases and these dudes don't understand. I talk about it all the time. Even your demeanor in court. You know what I mean? Even you know, you laughing or joking and shit like that, you know, people looking at that, jurors looking at that, you know what I mean? So it's a court etiquette that you got to have. You know, you talk to a motherfucker that been in courtrooms, you know what I mean? You know, plenty of time. You know, it's a way that you conduct yourself in that courtroom, man, to get these people, you know, to you know, make it seem like you're not mocking them, make it seem like you're not, you know what I mean? You know, so I agree with you 100% on that. Boosie should have stayed out of that one.
Now, what's the chance that Boosie fights his gun case the way that Mozzie did and just pleads out and maybe gets a year and a day? He probably won't get a year because of his background, but maybe 2 years. Is there a chance that he gets a low sentence the way Mozzie got?
Me personally, I'm gonna say no. You know what I mean? Like I said, I don't know no circumstances behind neither one of their cases. You know what I mean? I haven't read any, you know, charges on either one of their cases. You know, but at the same time, me personally, just being FG, nah, I think they're gonna try to run it up on Boosie, man. Just to be honest with you, you know, I think they're gonna try to hit him. You know, they can't get him on nothing else at the moment, man. We finna bust you upside your head with this. You know what I mean? And that's how they do it. You know, like I say, my first drug case ever, my only drug case ever, got called a petty amount. No, we got him. We gonna run him up now. You know what I mean? So I believe they gonna stick it to Boosie a lot harder than they did Mozzie. Yeah, but man. I mean, I hope they don't. Don't get me wrong, because I mean, hey man, he got pistols to protect himself. So I'm not mad at the man for having the 2 pistols at all. You know, like at all. You know, it's just at the end of the day, man. You know, when you running around town, you know, these kind of police, especially in California, they going up in your vehicle, man. If you ain't got that stash correct or you ain't got them things, you know, put somewhere where they can't find them, man, they definitely gonna knock you down. So now that he in the federal system, you know, like I say, man, they gonna take it from here. They gonna paint the picture of they gonna paint the picture that he, you know, the wildest dude in the world, you know, and we gonna see what happened. But I hope he gets some love, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because when he was fighting that other case he had back in the day in Louisiana, I believe he sat in that jail for about 7 years before he got out. I don't know if he pled out or if they gave him a lesser charge, but he definitely
was it that long?
Murder. Yeah, it was he fought that for about 7 years. If I remember correct. Yeah. So I remember that. Remember he was tied in a group with a dude named Webby. You don't really hear about Webby anymore, but when they came out, it was Boosie and Webby.
Oh no, man! I love Webby, man. Webby used to spit that shit, man. Yeah, no doubt. You know what I mean? But Webby had went and did some time, you know, and Webby just did his a little different. You know what I mean? And you know, and they even used to they was partners, man. You know, and they used to even talk shit up to each other about, you know, how they did each other. You know, I mean, you know how they could do better in this industry, because both of them was wild. You know what I mean? You know, so but like I say, man, you know, we gonna see how the feds treat him, man. I just said from my personal understanding of how I feel that they want to do, man, I think they gonna try to get him on this one, Alex.
Man, that's crazy if they do that, man. Yeah, in 2008 is when he caught his case, and he was released in when was he released? He was released in 2014. So what's that? 6 years. A little almost.
Yeah, I mean, hey, shit. Nah, but that's a significant amount of time. Shit.
Yeah. So, all right, man. We'll follow up on that Boosie case, and I definitely want to talk about YNW Melly before we wrap this up. But before we talk about YNW Melly, I want to talk about this girl that really thought she was going to get away with robbing $600,000 from her own job. You know, from your own job.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Yeah, your own job, man. You know. And she did it in, if I ain't mistaken, Alex, it was a short time. It ain't like it was over a 4-year span or something. If I'm not mistaken, man, it was a short while, man.
Between June and August, this woman,
that's crazy,
tried to steal almost about a little over $500,000. I'll play a video on it first, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, here we go.
A former Brinks employee is accused of stealing more than $600,000 from the security company. Memphis police say Michaela Small stole the money between June and August of last year. According to a security manager for Brinks said that Small was caught on video taking money while she was counting deposits. The security manager told police that Small admitted to stealing the money. Police say she later returned about $30,000 of the missing $600,000.
All right, that's it. What's crazy about this case is that it took a while. It took a while to catch her because she did this last year, and they're just finding it out now. So that's probably why she only turned in 30,000 FG. You mean to tell me she spent 500 racks already?
I hope she didn't. I hope she got them put up somewhere, to help her do her time, to help her hire a lawyer, to help her, fight her case. You know what I mean? And she got super greedy. I mean, super greedy. You know what I mean? And $600,000 in a short of 600, and you only gave back 30. I ain't gonna lie. I wouldn't have gave back shit. Just based on you hit already. Because once you went over 250,000, you know what I mean. That took you into a different crime level. And so if you wasn't gonna give back, 400 or 500,000 of it, it's just gonna take you into a different level. So I wouldn't have gave shit back.
Yeah, it says here that she was charged with theft of property greater than 250,000. I guess that's
okay.
Is that like the limit for getting charged at that level? If she would have took 249,000, I guess she would be looking at a lesser offense. But since it's over,
exactly, it's offense levels, and that 250 took her into a different offense level, and if she would have went higher, that would have took her into a different offense level. And I think once you get the 4 million, I believe it is. I got the paper upstairs and said once you get the 4 million, anything after 4 million is the same, But yeah, it's levels all the way up until I believe 4 million.
So if she's able to return, let's say, okay, they got her for 640,000. If she could return, let's say 400,000, that'll take her to 240, and she'd be looking at a lesser, a lesser offense level.
Right, no doubt, because she gonna fall into a. Well, is this did this go state? Yeah, I think this is a state case. But Brinks, I mean, if you stealing from Brinks, they may be federally insured, so it could be a Fed case, Alex.
Yeah, I just assumed it was a Fed case because I'm
I believe it should be because they probably federally insured, man. So they gonna definitely run that through the Feds. So like I say, yeah, they gonna have her at with that 250, gonna have her in a higher offense level. But I mean, even if you drop down to a low one offense level lower, they still gonna do something with her. I just hope she would, like I say, I just hope she got the money put up in a safe spot, so when she, like I say, she could pay an attorney, she can take care of herself in prison, and you can have something when you get home.
Yeah, it says in this article that according to the Memphis PD, the security manager for Brinks filed a theft report for business. She stated that while investigating deposit shortages, she found that an employee, Michaela Small, stole money. The theft totaled $640,000, according to the police. The security manager and another employee confronted Small. She admitted to stealing the funds. On August 1st, she returned only $30,000. She only returned $30,000. And it says here that MPD, so that's the local, that's the state. So far it sounds like a state case. MPD says the manager gave a statement, provided evidence. She also identified Small in a 6-person lineup. And what's interesting is she did this last year, and I guess they decided to look at they figured out they were missing money at some point, and they said, let's go look at the security cameras. And they found her sticking her hand in the cookie jar between August. What was the month?
June and August. Yeah, between June and August.
Yeah, between June and August. So that's really what got her caught, because she got away with this for 6-7 months. So. It looks like can the feds actually take this case over, even though it's the Memphis PD, doing all the investigation right now?
Well, I mean, that happens a lot. Sometimes when people call the police on anything, of course, the police is going to come, initially. The Fed, you can't just call the feds and they're going to pull up and investigate the case. Most of the time they're going to have the PD come, make their arrest, write the report, and then based on like I say, what kind of insurance these people had, whether it go federal or not, and that's how they're going to determine it, So, I mean, if it's state, she got action, like I say, but once you got go feds, you got them guidelines and you got them, things of that nature. So we gonna see. I'm gonna stick my keep my ear on this because I do want to see what kind of time she even looking at, for that kind of money to see even if it's anywhere worth it. So say if they talking about 2 years, man, for some people that's worth it. If she got 500,000 put up at the pad, people don't make that on their job in 2 years. So, just depending on, what kind of time she looking at, man, I'm trying to see if it was worth it.
It sounds as if this was considered a bank robbery. And if it's a bank robbery, is that 5 years in the feds, a bank robbery?
No, not if she didn't use a pistol, not at all. Bank robbery started 3 years, 36 months without a pistol. You walk in the bank with a note, Alex, and hand them a note, and they, they're supposed to give you the money even with a note. So if you go in there and say, man, give me, $50,000 and they give it to you and you walk out with it, you still can get 36 months on that without a criminal record or things of that nature. It's when you go in there with that pistol and rob them is when the time come in. So that's why I say she can come out, man, smelling like roses. Still, this is a money crime. You know what I mean? Nobody was hurt. You know what I mean? They don't call it victimless. I mean, we'll call it victimless. They try to say that it hurts the institution and things of this nature, but not one person was hurt. So she stole money. She ain't did nothing that a lot of these politicians ain't getting caught doing. So I'm just gonna see how they handle it because she shouldn't get a lot of time.
Yeah, because she didn't use any. There was no violence. There's no weapon.
Right, none of that. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Hey, you remember in the movie Dead Presidents? They were going to go rob. They were robbing the Brinks truck because they found out they were going to burn the money. I guess banks burn money every once in a while, so they went to go steal money that the banks were planning to burn. So that's really the victimless crime because this is money that they were going to throw in the trash and discard anyways. In that movie, Dead Presidents from. I think that was 1995.
Yeah, I remember Lorenz Tate and them, I think, played in that movie, if I ain't mistaken. Yeah.
To me, that's a classic that doesn't get talked about a lot, Dead Presidents.
I'm sure we watched it about 10 times. Yeah, we watched it about 10 times. So, definitely a classic back then. So, man, what you trying to say?
I was going to say, when people talk about the classics, they always go with the Boys in the Hood. They always go with Menace to Society.
Yeah.
You don't hear people saying Dead Presidents.
No, you don't. But to me, it was one of them. It goes in there with them. You know what I mean? And a few other movies. Go in that same category, man. There was some classics, man.
Remember Boss Man Cudi? I think that was Pinky from one of Ice Cube's money.
Yeah, from Cudi Friday. Yeah.
And Dead Presidents. I always call him Pinky. Whenever I see that actor, I say, "Oh, they go Pinky."
No doubt. I like dude too, though.
Yeah. All right. So. She might have pulled off I don't want to say, hold on, let me be very careful how I word this. This girl, what's her name? Her name is Michaela Small. Michaela Small may have gotten away with a financial crime where she's going to end up doing a limited amount of years, but could be walking away with $500,000.
No doubt, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like I say, man, see, for me, I think of other issues and shit just because I've seen so many bad issues go wrong. Say if she get 2 years, man, they give her 2 years for the crime and shit, and she go do the 2 years. You know how many family members and sisters and brothers is going to be trying to find out where this money at? And if they know where it's at, Alex, unfortunately, man, people ain't shit. Even brothers and sisters and aunties and uncles, and when it comes to money, grandmamas and shit, you know what I mean? They ain't shit when it comes to money. So even if she got it put up, say if she on her second year in her bid, she running out of money that she just took out to take care of. She needs somebody to go in the stash and get some more to send to her. Man, they finna rape her ass, man, for that money. You know what I mean? And that's the fucked up part about family members and money. You know what I mean? So if she did get away, hypothetically, if she got away with the 500 and got to 2 years, it's fucking with the family. Is she gonna have the 500 when she get home? You know what I mean? And that's the sad part about it, man. Money, man. It turned people all bad. Even not everybody. Don't get me wrong. Not everybody. She may have a sister to be like, sis, I got you. Your shit gonna be here. So, you had those people. Don't get me wrong, but it is a lot of faulty family members when it comes to that money, Alex.
Yeah, man. You just reminded me when my little brother had to turn himself in to do some time. I don't remember how much time he had to. I think he had to do 5 years. and he gave me $15,000. I said, "What's this for?" He said, "You're the only one I trust." He said, "This is all I got, and I need this when I get out." So I put it up, and he even told me, if I ask for any of this money, don't give it to me. So about halfway through his sentence, he says, "Hey, I need $2,500." And I said, "No." He said, "No, for real. I really need $2,500." And I said, "You told me not to give it up." He said, "Nah, I need it for my girl. I need it for a wedding ring." And then I did eventually give him the $2,500. But it was crazy that he told me, of all the family members that are out there, he came to me and he said, "You're the only one I trust." And all his money was there, minus the $2,500 when he came home. So you're right about that. I guess, I'm not on the side that my little brother's on. I'm not on the side that you've been on where you're like, damn, what do I do with this money? Who could I trust? Ain't nobody out there that I could slide 20, 30, 40 racks to and expect for that money to be there when I come home. I guess that's a tough.
I've been on that side, homie. You know what I mean? That's how I know how it go. That's how I can speak so thoroughly on it. You know what I mean? Shit, man, I left money with the wrong motherfucking people. I tried to leave it with a couple different people, and and the thing about it, man, is just like I say, family ain't all of them ain't no good, man. And it happens to more of us than you think. You know what I mean? Well, we think a certain somebody is responsible or reliable, them be the ones that'll get you, because at the end of the day, think about it like this, say if you would have spent his money, he can't kill Al, he gonna kill his brother, he ain't gonna, you know what I mean? And but so that's why a family member just could work you so fast, you know what I mean? And that's how I go, bro, shit. I've been on the losing, right? I've been on the losing end, man, but hey, it is what it is, and that's what's happening.
Hey, you know what I would do is I would just put it in a safe deposit box at the bank and just pay the safe deposit box for the next 5 years or whatever, how much time you got to do. That makes more sense to me than leaving the money in anybody's hand. Just put it in the safe deposit box at the bank.
Well, see, the problem is people that haven't had a safe deposit box. People don't understand that, people been using these things, these avenues for years to protect their heirlooms, protect shit, of value. They don't understand that. You know what I mean? So when you talking about somebody that's working at this spot and they stealing money, they may, she may know because she works at a spot that deals with money. So she probably done heard all kind of financial, avenues to protect money, to, bank account information. She probably know. So, like you say, she may have an avenue. It might already be there. That's probably why they can't find the rest of it. She probably already got it tucked in a spot to where if I ever get caught, that's going to be there, So, she just may have, some people aren't smart enough to do that. Some people, unfortunately, have it at home under the mattress. And then as soon as they raid the house, they get the money back and you still get the, same amount of time, So, so she may have did that, but like you say, man, there's so many people that don't. First thing they're going to do is trust a family member like I did. I didn't think about putting it in no safety pouch. Didn't even cross my mind at all. And so at the end of the day, man, I took the L's,
Yeah, man, that's a serious L to take, man. And I'm glad I took care of my brother's money. I was just hoping that nothing happened to me because I want to make sure he good when he come home, But all right, man. Let's tap in with YNW Melly, man. I gotta correct myself from last week. I said that the YNW Melly Trial is probably not going to be televised, and it turns out that it is going to be televised, and we're going to, I guess, hear everything from closing statements to the verdict. So, were you able to tap in with any of the YNW Melly stuff, man? Anything come to light so far? I got a few clips here I'll play. But I just wanted to hear your any initial thoughts or ideas.
Well, from some of it that I was watching, I did hear a lot of testimony that was jibber jabber. You know what I mean? It didn't have no effect on what was going on. They got expert witnesses up there talking about shit that don't have nothing to do with the case, Alex. They got just for instance, they got a gun expert up there. You know what I mean? And he's an expert for sure. He knows what the hell he's talking about. They never found a gun in this case. You know what I mean? They don't have a weapon. You know what I mean? So he's talking about weapons like it or weapons that's similar or weapons that what that got to do with this trial. You know what I mean? So I did see that. You know what I mean? So I saw a few things that was irrelevant. I saw a couple things that may be relevant, but I can't put a staple on it to say, damn, they kind of got him or nah, but it ain't looking all from just a few pieces I seen. He's still fighting. He still got action to me at this moment.
Yeah, I don't think at this stage of the game, which is maybe day 3 of the trial.
Yeah. That's why I say at this moment, yeah.
Nothing too major has came out, but I want to play this little clip. This is the prosecutor here, and she made a point that she thinks or plans or hopes to prove. Let me play this short clip real quick.
This individual is reaching out, asking if Mr. Demons is good, after he's been tagged in multiple social media posts about this this shooting. And Mr. Demons responds very succinctly, "I did that." Shh. Ladies and gentlemen, at the conclusion of the evidence, the state is confident that you will find the defendant guilty as charged.
Okay, so a piece of the evidence is some Instagram, I don't know if it was a DM or post, where he's saying right after the whole thing happened is that I did it. And so that's going to be a part of the evidence that they're going to link to this double murder that they got against YNW Melly.
No doubt, you know what I mean? But he also said that I did that. He didn't say I did murder. You know what I mean? When you get to talking about beyond a reasonable doubt, Alex, you know what I mean? That's what it really means, beyond a reasonable doubt. You know what I mean? He could twist that and say, I meant anything, even though they know damn well what he meant. You know what I mean? But, can a juror just take that and say, man, a text message, I did that. You did what? He didn't, she wanted to make them believe that he admitted to it. And I could see how a lot of people would say that he did, but at the same time, man, as a juror, man, you looking for concrete evidence, man. And at this moment, that text, don't get me wrong, don't solidify that, but it can sway a jury. I mean, it definitely can sway a jury, you go back to hindsight, you know what I mean? Why the fuck is you texting anything about something you just did of this significance? You know what I mean? And bro is old enough to know that, all this social media shit can be subpoenaed. All this shit can go back and be found. I don't care if you delete it out your phone. They still got record of it, bro. You know what I mean? So, that's the crazy part. Even if he was talking about just anything, why would you text some shit like that? Or why would you, Instagram some shit like that? Or, why would you trust something like that? But at the same time, I do be thinking that these dudes just don't get it. They just don't understand. They naive to the fact of what investigators can find out.
Yeah, you just made me think about the Tory Lanez case, because he made a phone call and he sent a text message to Megan. He didn't say, I'm sorry for the shooting. He just said, I'm really sorry for what happened. So the prosecution was able to take the text message and the phone call he made from jail as circumstantial evidence and then link it up with the other evidence to build a case against him. So it's almost the same thing. Why are you texting? Why are you even discussing any of this stuff in a public place? If he's guilty, I don't know if he's guilty, but if he's guilty,
right.
Why would he do that? And Tory Lanez is even older than, this dude, YNW Melly, is like early 20s.
Yeah.
Tory Lanez was damn near 30 when that.
Right. He damn sure should have knew better.
Yeah, and we also heard remember Dominique Jones from the Travis Rudolph case. She tried to delete all her text messages where she was saying shoot his shit up and all that.
Right. No doubt. No, they got her all over right now. She all over social media. She like the clown of social media right now, man. They got so many sound bites and memes about this girl, man. It's just crazy, So,
hey, I think we're one of the first ones to really break down her testimony and the way we did it, because I swear I went online and was looking up stuff and I found a few things, but since after we did it and the case came to an end,
shit been flooding. Yeah.
There's so much stuff on her. What were you gonna say?
Well, you know, a lot of people tap in with Streets and Scholars, more people than people actually realize, you know, because we are a podcast, you know, so we are on all podcast platforms, Spotify, iHeart, you know, the whole nine. So a lot of people don't realize how many people listen to us, you know what I mean? And that's city officials, government officials, people in jail, you know, everywhere. You know, it's people that tap in with us, Alex. So sometimes we do drop some shit, man. People be surprised, man, and soon after you start seeing a whole bunch of, you know, post about the things. You know, we get a lot of inboxes and replies from, you know, famous people that say they watch it. So we appreciate all that. But man, you know, at the same time, we're gonna try to keep it as real as we can be. You know, I see Jonathan Allen in the comments said the only shot he got is a weapon not found. You know, weapon not found do help his case, you know, but depending on how much other evidence that they have that they haven't even brought out yet, you know, sometimes they be waiting in the cut for your ass, Alex, to end up getting all the way down there to the end of the trial before they drop some of them bombs because they want it to be fresh in the juror's head. So we're going to see if they use that tactic or see if they really don't have as much as we think on this dude.
Well, here's a clip of the day of the incident where all of them were together. So they're basically trying to say that YNW Melly was with both Juvie and Sack Chaser on the night of the incident. Let me play this clip real quickly. So this is a clip that they showed to the jury of all four of them together, just chilling, hanging out. And I don't know, like an hour. I don't remember what the testimony was, but like maybe an hour later, two of these dudes are dead. So they're just trying to establish that, okay, these two guys are dead, and look who's with these two guys just a little while before the whole thing happened. This isn't evidence again, right? But it's pretty powerful circumstantial evidence. Would you say?
No doubt. They definitely gonna try to, you know, put as much emphasis on this situation right here as they can. You know, I mean, I don't expect them not to try to run it in the dirt. You know, as far as you know, what happened, man. But at the same time, you know, two people did come up dead, Alex. You know, this dude is accused of killing two friends, you know, two partners. For the family member and for the homies, that hurt even worse, you know. So like I say, he's accused, you know, so, you know, and so they going to try to walk it down, man, and try to, you know, use every little bit of significant information that they can to get the jury to believe that, but just because you see them getting in the car together, just because you see them hanging out, just because you see them all this, you know, it's not without a reasonable doubt that, you know, somebody committed murder, you know, so, but they gonna try to tie it all in, no doubt.
Definitely, man. It is just a piece of circumstantial evidence, but this is how cases are made. This is how cases are built. You know, if you have just one piece of circumstantial evidence, of course, you know, you're not going to convict the guy off of one piece. But if at the end of the day, they're able to build a case with, you know, two things, three things, add another layer, and this is all circumstantial, you know, that's enough to move a jury to vote not guilty.
No doubt. You know what I mean? But it's also, like I say, you know, I don't know every piece of evidence that they have. I don't know, you know, how much other testimony and Instagram and, you know, things of that nature, how much they actually have, you know, to like I say, when you take it in totality and shit and see all the evidence that they do have, I still say at the end of the day, man, you can have a whole lot of shit. You don't have a weapon. You don't have a witness to point out to say he did it. It's still hard, Alex, to you know, to convict a man, take his life, and they want the death penalty, you know, for some of the circumstances that they have. Like I say, the jury got to take that into consideration. But is unfortunately there's just a messed up situation. You know, two young black men, you know, is dead. You know, and regardless of, you know, of who did it, you know, you still got a grieving family over there, bro. You still got brothers and sisters that took a L, you know, that took a lost a loved one. So, you know, at the end of the day, man, it's just an unfortunate situation, man. You know, at the end of the day, man.
Yeah, I saw a clip. I thought I had it here. I don't have the audio for this clip, but I saw a clip of one of YNW Melly's attorneys basically trying to say that the other cat, Bortland, is responsible. Or not, he didn't say he was responsible, but he said, look at the video of the hospital. That's Bortland. Who drove the two victims to the hospital? Bortland did. You know, he's like, my guy.
Who's saying that?
one of YNW Melly's attorneys.
Oh yeah, damn! I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I was trying to look it up right now. So I was like, okay, is the strategy to kind of throw his partner under the bus a little bit? He ain't saying he did it, but he just saying, look at the video. Who do you see in the video at the hospital? That's Bortman. How many phones did they find? 3 of them. Was any of those phones YNW Melly's? No. Who's the third phone belong to? Bortman. You know. So that's a little bit of strategy, I think. That
I don't know, Alex. That's more than strategy, man. That's like placing the blame on somebody else, if you ask me, man. You know, and they got to be careful with that. You know what I mean? Because Borland can come with some shit too. You know, or his attorney can come with some shit too if they want to play that game. You know, I will walk a thin line. You know, I mean, I could point out that Melly wasn't there. You know what I mean? If you go look at the hospital, you don't see my client. You know, if you look at the phones, none of them belong to my client. You know what I mean? But when you get the name calling and saying who was doing something, you know, you got to take all that shit into consideration. That a motherfucker flip on your ass quick. So I hope it don't. You know, I hope they just, you know what I mean? Keep that in mind while they fighting their case, man. You know, so yeah.
Well, it's a typical defense strategy called third-party culpability, saying that my guy didn't do it. There's a third party that may have done it. That appears to be the strategy. I wanted to play a one more clip, or part of one more clip before we wrap it up here, man. There's just so much stuff on this case that's going on. I want to play a couple of minutes of this clip here. Some more trial footage. Let me cue it up right here. Here we go.
There's about 15 different major manufacturers. I also ran again with those 2 submissions to me in the case. So there was an initial submission that contained 3 projectiles, and then there was an initial secondary submission which contained projectiles from the medical examiner's office. And based on the characteristics of the second submission, there was, I think, an even larger number. About 27 manufacturers that could have fired that set.
Okay. Can you just pick number 17 off that list and read the distance determination?
No, I can't do that for a variety of reasons. First and foremost being that these lists are telling me the manufacturers, right? It's not telling me the make and model. So it's giving me the make. So it's saying, possibly 6 Hour, possibly St. Lawrence, but which one of their pistols in 40? It doesn't tell me that. And so the list can be very, very lengthy. It also won't tell me the barrel length.
All right, so that's the firearms expert trying to break down the type of ammunition that was used in the shooting. And my guess is that since they're putting him up, then that means they got some more firearms testimony to follow up. And, we'll just have to wait and see. This trial is televised on the Law and Crime Network, and I'll be tapping in with it. And we'll tap in again next week and give you an update of the highlights of the trial, man. Any last words on the YNW Melly case, FG?
Nah, no doubt. I don't want to touch too much, you know what I mean? I want to be able to fight this case, you know what I mean? But Melly used to be out here hanging on the West Coast as well, you know what I mean? And so I remember you had some footage of him from back in the day, but I know he used to like to hang around on the east side a minute. But, I hope he get, a fair trial, you know what I mean? I hope he, be able to, his attorneys do a good job, justice gonna do what it's gonna do, a lawyer's gonna do what they do, jurors gonna do what they do, he fighting for his life, man. So, hey, it is what it is, man.
And he's literally fighting for his life because he's looking.
Yeah, real shit. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Also, he's being tried separately from the other dude. Sometimes they put both the defendants together in a trial, but he's being tried by himself. So it's interesting because I wonder if both these guys have spoke to each other or if their attorneys spoke to each other in terms of the strategy. Because technically, YNW Melly can throw him under the bus in his trial, and then Bortland can throw him under the bus in the trial that to follow. And if it both works, it's both legitimate. So if they've spoken to each other about strategy, then it's all good.
Well, not the term throwing each other under the bus. Using a strategy, to help y'all win y'all case, or help y'all get in better a position in y'all trial. That's one thing, man. But like I say, you kind of want to stay away from, the finger pointing just based on, some of that small shit can put you in a situation where they can add some more shit up. You know what I mean? So hey, if they talked about it and that's the strategy they want to go by, then hey, it's all good, but at the same time, man, I just think they need to tread lightly on that who did what and who didn't do what, or any kind of accusations like that, that can come back and hurt them later.
Yeah, we're gonna find out if people are considering any of the statements by the attorneys, quote unquote, snitching to the other co-defendant that's not on trial. But we'll tap in with y'all next week, man. Make sure you tap in with FG on his YouTube channel, FG Unleashed. I know he's got some good ish coming real soon. And
no doubt,
tap in with him on Instagram at FGeneral1. I'm at Alex Alonso 101. I've been posting Tory Lanez updates. Oh, his sentencing got postponed till August 7th. So he's going to be able to hang out in the Los Angeles County Jail in high power for at least another month and a half or so, while his attorneys are successful at getting another delay, another continuance. And I want to thank all of the listeners out there on the podcast platforms. If you're on Apple, please leave us a comment and review. Spotify, Google, iHeart, appreciate y'all. And thanks for tapping in on another fire episode of Streets and Scholars.